whatever milestones that Black people make against hate, it ends up benefiting all the other people of color. I can't see what his end game is. The Republican Party is the party of racism, is the party of white supremacy, is the party of hate. This is wrong, and it needs to stop.
Everybody wants to go back and drag that piece of history up, but they don't want to go back and deal with what their ancestors did to the indigenous people and to Black people in this country. You got to go. And you got billionaires talking about going to space and Jeff Bezos. Go! Never come back. I hope you get lost. This man has lost his mind.
Boom! Come on, girlfriend. What is up, everybody? Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations, 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. Also, I host the only online show for dads and fathers in the world that is sponsored by Dove Men Care and also co-sponsored by Dad Central. We're recording episodes right now. It's going to be going live in June, so we'll keep you up to date on that, by the way. And as always, I'd like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Broadcasting live on May 14th. I'm in Toronto, where it's hot, hazy, and humid. We finally got we didn't get any spring weather. We're right into summer right now. So for the people who are watching that know the Fahrenheit thing, we're about 80 degrees today. Celsius-wise, about 25-ish, but we've got the humidity happening. So no spring, really good spring weather. We went from winter to summer. But it's a Saturday night. No better place to be hanging out with Aisha K. Staggers and Jill Jones. It's Stagger State. No, it's State of Things with Aisha and Jill. I always get that wrong.
I know.
And I don't even say, I start saying something and I see Aisha's head. Yeah, okay, correction. That's all right. What's going on?
Oh gosh, it's so hot here.
I know.
How was the week?
It was long.
It was a long week, I thought. There was so much going on. So
like on the fly and everything, all the madness that's going on in this so-called world. It's a little cray-cray out there.
It's a little nonstop too. So it's sort of like relentless, don't you think?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Pounding away.
Hey, what's going on, Jen? Good to see you as always. Our number one supporter online. No, I think so. Would you care to differ?
No, we haven't seen Chris Langford in a while.
No.
Yeah. And and for those people watching, there's still a challenge broadcasting on Facebook. So YouTube is the place to catch us. YouTube is the place to catch it for at least a short term. But Chris Langford, and T-Law says, 74 degrees in the Bay Area.
Nice.
All right. With or without humidity? I like to know. I've never been to San Fran, so I don't know if there's humidity there or not. So,
we get a lot of humidity here. Yeah, we're just like lucky that there wasn't any today, but it was like the highest was like 80.
Wow.
We jumped from winter to summer too. Yeah,
no really spring weather. Our spring weather was dreary, and like, let's give you some humidity. Thank you. But so you're not saying a lot what's going on, so that means you want to talk tonight. So I'm gonna let things going. But you know what? One of the things we always say is we love Tila saying no humidity. Good for you, Tila. Good for you. We always invite the family to come on, and someone has risen to the challenge. I'm telling because I think actually the last week's conversation, someone was on making comments. Hey, come on in. And then I sent them a video message. I bet she wasn't expecting that, saying we'd love to have you on. And she said, let's do it. So Lala's in the house.
Hey, Lala.
Hello. Thank you for having me. And by the way, I am a video chick. So when you sent me a video, I was like, oh, I'm in. I'm so in.
I love it. I love it. So, well, welcome to the live family. You're always in the commentary, but you're in the live family. Can you share a little bit about yourself to our family?
Sure. I'm just a chick from Kentucky who has lots of personal opinions. But
Oh,
I'm
you're in the wrong.
currently,
You're in the wrong place.
we're in
You
the
got
wrong
personal
place.
opinions. You are so in the wrong place.
I try to be the light as much as I can in the world. There's so much going on right now, but married to a wonderful musician. We make music, and we went to art school together in Kentucky and do music. And I also do real estate. So I've been a realtor in Denver, California, and Florida. And now I'm kind of doing a little bit of a lifestyle thing, and I'm liking that. I'm kind of switching up a little bit.
Right.
Okay.
And I did the song with her.
Yeah.
And her husband.
Okay, so I was gonna. Where was the connection with you and Jill?
Yeah,
Yes.
she's a singer too.
Oh,
Yeah, she left that out.
My heart. We listen to it all the time. It warms my heart.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness. Well, thank you to the family. And as I said, if you love giving opinions, I was being sarcastic. You're at the right place. You've seen one or two, you've seen one or two of these episodes, right?
Just a few.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time out of your positive, productive schedule. And everyone, one other person says Cleveland has humidity and some bad air quality. Yes, Jen, I've been to Cleveland in the summertime. Woo!
It's rough. Cleveland,
Not good. Not good. But you know what? Let's get at it. And this topic we're going to start off first with tonight just happened this afternoon, family. You may or may not know, but there was a mass shooting in Buffalo today. Like, I'm an hour and a half drive from Buffalo. Goodness, there's a border between us. And 10 people were killed, and now they're saying it's a hate crime.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts, folks?
Do they have to say that anymore? We know it as soon as we hear it.
So true.
Yeah.
The guy, he's a white guy. He was on 4chan and 8chan and all those weirdos. He's an immigrant. I think they said he looks like Ed Sheeran, funny enough. Kind of, and it of course they took him alive. It's like, I don't understand. He had an assault rifle with the N-word taped at the end. I guess, where you're lining up how to shoot people and the N-word was written.
You're kidding.
He filmed it. He obviously had a GoPro on. He did all of this. He'd been planning. It's so premeditated. I think he should get the death penalty, whatever it may be, because it was definitely premeditated. His hero was the guy from Christchurch, the situation that happened in Newcastle or New Zealand.
Yeah.
I've already seen people trying to make it, well, he was radicalized. No, actually, he had a choice. He's a grown-ass person. He made a decision to be racist. After a while, you make a choice to do that, in my mind. And the police looked like they were handling him like he was Ed Sheeran coming out of a concert. He wasn't roughed up.
Like he was doing.
They looked like his bodyguards, actually. Yeah. He didn't look like a criminal at all.
Well, that's not the first time we've seen that.
Exactly. So we know exactly how these.
Let it be a person of color. They'd be dead.
Yeah. And next year he'll probably have a show on Fox or, be interning for McCarthy or Ted Cruz. I mean, it's like, really, like, how low can we go? This is what happens. This is America. This is what it is. He'll be running for Congress in a couple of months from his jail cell and win.
This is so disturbing because it's very much like what happened at Mother Emanuel in Charleston. And for those of you, if you don't know me, the state senator from South Carolina that was killed in that shooting actually was one of the people who sat and interviewed me for my job at the South Carolina Commission for Minority Affairs. So that was a very tragic experience, and they did the exact same thing. They brought him in alive, fed him Burger King, and didn't manhandle them, but let that be someone of color who did the same thing. And you're going, they might look. You can't even be in your own home, in your own bed,
Right.
and be a Black person
Exactly.
and expect to wake up in the morning, right? Like Breonna Taylor. It just doesn't. It just doesn't happen. I'm surprised even that they took the shooter from the subway in New York alive.
Right.
And I think the only reason that they did that is because he didn't kill anyone. But if he had, what would that have looked like? This it's really disturbing because we're not talking about people who were in an environment where they were expecting violence. These were people who were just going to their local store, right?
Yeah.
And he shoots 3 in the parking lot before he even gets in the store.
Well, when I first saw this story, and then when I heard we wanted to chat about this tonight, it took me back to a conversation we had a few weeks ago about gun laws. I don't know what state the governor basically said they were going to pass it's okay to carry guns, open carry guns. And Jill, I don't know if it was Jill or Aisha, you said something. I think it was maybe Jill. You said, "Look out, it's open season on Black people."
Yes.
Yeah.
And we also need to not forget that yesterday, Elise Stefanik, she's a congressperson. She's the one who took Liz Cheney's job. Basically, they gave it to her in Congress.
Yeah.
She went on and on and on about white replacement theory. On and on. She incited it too. So she was part of it, tipping point, all of it. These people need to be held responsible and accountable for what they're inciting in their words. You know, and even if not, they just should be dragged all damn day online for it. And every time they live, as long as they live on this planet, Elise Stefanik and whatever kids she decides to have, if Baal decides to raise something from the dead and give it to her, then they should be dragged, you know, relentlessly.
You know, the thing about
these people are, you know, no excuses is ridiculous.
Like this whole replacement theory thing, it's like the Republican Party in America, they took Nixon's platform, but like magnified it by 100. And so really they don't have any issues that they're running on. They're just going to run on racism. And that's it. And it's working for them, particularly in these state governments. The further south you get below the Mason-Dixon line, it's like 1955 again, right? Mm-hmm. Because of all the laws that they're trying to pass. Eventually, you're going to start seeing someone come after the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. I mean, they've already.
They're coming
they're
after
lining
the
it all up.
Yeah,
they're lining it all up.
Mm-hmm.
They've been planning this for years behind closed doors, and the person who helped open that door, because it brought hate right back where it was Trump.
Yep.
They couldn't control him, but they knew they could use him.
Yes.
And that's what they're doing. They're going after every single thing. And if you don't watch it, Clarence Thomas, sooner or later, your wife and you are not going to be able to be married either.
I know. It's so true. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're like, you know, racism is the thing for them right now.
Which is why I think Black people should just have more Black kids, you know. Say, here, this is what you're afraid of. 9 months later, here we all are. Because I don't know what to say. I mean, what do you do? It's like kind of like I was sitting there going, what are we doing? And I was like, okay, in jujitsu, you're doing jujitsu and you take the person's, you know, their weight and then you use it. Okay, well, y'all don't want us to have babies. Let's just saturate all of America with Black children everywhere you go.
Yeah,
y'all ain't gonna like that. I guarantee it.
I can see it in my mind right now.
I can too. It's a plan. We can get our own little super PAC together and just keep paying into it to take care of folks.
That's right, because they're not going to. They want you to have these babies.
Aisha, get something in, please.
There's
Remember, we're
more
like
ways
2
to
years
tame a
away
tiger.
we're 2 years away from them becoming the minority in this country. And the closer we get to that, the more outwardly, blatantly racist that they are. Not only are they just racist, they are playing on white people's fears of becoming a racial minority in this country, because the thought is, oh my gosh, our people have done so much to all these other groups of people. They're going to come for us. They're going to treat us the way that we treated them. And the thing is that this tells you that they don't know any people of color, because we're not even thinking about y'all like that.
Well, then they make up their own rules.
But
Come
we
on,
need
let's
to.
face it.
Now we need to. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay.
But
All
I
right.
mean, them themselves are always like, okay, well, here's an example. Someone actually said this to me. Obama's not the first black president because he has white in him. Well, who made the first drop rule? I mean, come on. Which side are you on? What is it? You don't understand.
Yeah,
You don't get to have it both ways.
Yeah. I'm going to bring up something here. Brian Delaney says, time to start charging American gun companies every time some dumb blank does something messed up with one of their products. All proceeds can go to victims.
Well, that's what my state did. Remember, like the last couple of weeks, the Sandy Hook parents got to sue the gun manufacturer, right? And we knew this was coming because immediately after this happened, they pushed that gun manufacturer, the big one, out of the state. You know where they went? South Carolina, right? Which obviously they're going to open them, welcome them with open arms. And that was when Nikki Haley was governor that happened. So I think more states need to get on the ball. However, the criticism I do have of my state is that it took for the Sandy Hook shooting to happen when there's been a long history of gun violence in New Haven, which is where I'm from, Hartford and Bridgeport, and nothing was done. As a matter of fact,
it took over 14 years for them to do anything, right?
Mm-hmm. Almost 10.
Okay.
Almost 10. But the sad part about it is that like the day before, the governor was supposed to meet with some people, some lawmakers across the state to put this, they were going to do this kind of surveillance program where people coming out of prison, that they were looking at, their penchant for gun violence, when this was someone who legally owned guns, right? Those are the people that you really need to be afraid of, because they legally own guns and the laws keep changing so that they have fewer and fewer restrictions and they're becoming more bold in how they use them.
I don't know. I think that I honestly am at the point where I don't think the government's going to save us on this. I think that people need to know that going forward, everything is in our hands. The government's not going to do anything about it. Yeah. They never will. They're not going to. There'll be a few little commentary, oh, boo hoo hoo, and let's do this. These poor black people, a few white folks will be strutted out. Little whiteies will go out and be like, oh, we're really sorry, and this is not going to happen. Well, it keeps happening on you. So let's change the time here. We're not going to count on you. So I encourage citizens to take it upon themselves. I think that it's the only way we'll get rid of Fox News. The only way we'll get rid of anything is that some of it is in our hands. And, it sort of reminded me of Frantz Fanon, who I was reading about recently, when he went to Algeria and he was, the psychologist for like France and in like World War II, or was it? And he dealt a lot with colonialism and how colonialists were the mindset of colonialism. And even when sometimes you think you're out there, standing up there, it's very hard to not end up being on the side of the oppressor at some point, because you've been so indoctrinated in this game. Even the willfulness to turn it off and go on about your business, that's part of your indoctrination. That's part of it. Some people are like, oh, it's my self-care. No, you've been indoctrinated to make this a normalcy. It should not be. It should never be.
If anybody hasn't read Frantz Fanon. You should start with
Oh,
his
yeah.
book, Wretched of the Earth.
Wretched of
Yeah.
that book is crazy.
Yeah,
And I hadn't
because
thought about it in years. I put up 2 quotes today about him.
I read it
years,
when
I
I
don't
was
know why I
back in
thought of
graduate
him.
school, and
I don't know
it's.
why I thought of him. I
But
think
the
because
funny
there was
thing is that
something.
his book is banned in some of these states because they
Oh,
consider it
really?
CRT. Yeah,
Surprise, surprise.
Oh,
ridiculous.
shit.
That's the
I didn't
ridiculous
know.
part. I was at a function for work today, and you know, uh, a white man said, we have this thing in this country where people don't realize that our people have done some really bad stuff and they don't want to admit to it. He's like, we took people from another continent and enslaved them. We came to an inhabited continent and tried to act like we discovered some stuff. And the way that we treated the Japanese people during World War II, it was, he's like, until we come to that
And
realization.
the Chinese.
Yeah,
And the Chinese.
He's like, until we come to
And
that
the
realization.
Jews. And the
Yeah.
Jews. They just leveled up and hunkered down, which is what we should have done. Level up, hunker down.
Well, that's the other side of it, isn't it? That the way this country is, and I think the feeling of being a racial minority is what led white people to give Jewish people a certain level of whiteness, right, in the country, so that they could increase their numbers.
I just have to say, like, this has really messed me up so badly, like how the state of this country, that I made a lot of changes. Like, I gave them back their God. I don't want anything to do with Christianity. I don't. They have put me off so many things. Like, I honestly can't believe I'm saying it, but I've been struggling with that.
Well,
I gave them back their Jesus, their God.
Right?
I don't want it because
a certain thing.
Yeah.
But God is not who they think it is. I'm
yeah,
sorry,
but I don't believe in God at all anymore.
Mm.
I didn't when my mother died, and I'm starting to feel that, the sooner that we just wake up in the morning and say, this could actually be it. This could just be it. And then when you see all those 10 people who just lost their lives, and you have to say, that was their it, and it's gone. It makes you think a little bit harder and longer about being kind and being gentle. With this out that you're going to heaven or hell or whatever, that's an out that Plato and Socrates even spoke about. They had to do it for dum-dums because dum-dum heads couldn't cope if they didn't think they were going to be rewarded for either biding their time or having a suffering in their lives. Those are for idiots. And then there were the other people who decided, because I don't believe that the leaders of this country even believe in God. They just use it to manipulate people. And I believe that about the evangelical churches.
Uh-huh.
I think they're scum, and I think they should pay taxes.
Mm-hmm.
They are disgusting. And as soon as they keep your religion out of my life, that's all I have to say. I don't want it.
Well, remember when we worked a year
government's
ago,
supposed to be a separation of church and state.
No, but a year ago, remember, there was that slaying in Atlanta of the Asian women primarily, right? So here we are, not just 12 months later, in another racially motivated crime, murder, like mass murder, right? And I think that the news media is not helping by calling it a mass shooting. It was a mass murder.
Yeah.
Period. A shooting implies that people are going to get up and walk, out their doors again. And no one thinks that they're going to go to a grocery store and get killed for picking up, a carton of eggs. Mm-hmm. No one thinks that. So that is also part of the terror of this whole event too, because people were innocently just doing what they do on their regular Saturday. And then they have to face it. I'll tell you this, during the pandemic, I think I had when we were on lockdown, I had the least amount of stress because there was not that constant interaction and having to deal with people's racism. except except online. You don't have to deal with the microaggressions, the daily microaggressions, and all of that. And that was like the most freeing thing, because I was around people that looked like me the whole time, my family. So it was one of those things where it's kind of like I'm not in a rush to go back to this pre-pandemic lifestyle that worked
Well,
for all people except for us.
It's interesting you say that, because one of the things I thought about after this event today, that drive home grocery delivery services, especially in Buffalo area, they're going to be doing good business for the oncoming future, because no one's going to want to go out to want to shop for the groceries. But the thing is, people who look like us, we're the least that can afford the delivery at home grocery services.
Yes.
Well, thankfully, we have some grocery stores in Connecticut that will do free delivery if you're spending a certain amount of money. And they provide it for people who get food assistance, that you can get groceries for free. So thankfully, we're seeing that happen. But remember, I live in Connecticut, so the majority of poor people in this state are white.
Yeah, right. Probably the average income in Connecticut is a little bit different than Buffalo, New York.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Actually, no, it depends on where you are. It's really the opposite. Buffalo,
Greenwich, Connecticut has some of the top billionaires outside of Wyoming. Yeah, there's just like everybody has at least one house in Greenwich, Connecticut. It's like part of a club, right? Yeah. It's like when I found out that Gwyneth Paltrow was from Greenwich, Connecticut, it just was like
it's such a small place, right? So it's such a small place between.
Merrick Garland is from there. It's a clique
there. Yeah. I mean, like Diana Ross used to have a house there, and Mike Tyson had a house.
Yeah, but Diana will always be black, and so will Mike. But Merrick Garland.
But yeah,
he married up. His wife had the money.
That area where Greenwich is, Fairfield County, that really puts the median income for the state like all the way over, right? Where the average income is probably between 50 and 80,000.
And New Canaan though has some rich people too.
Well, Joe Scarborough and Miko Brzezinski live in New Canaan.
Yeah, New Canaan is another one that ain't cheap.
Well, let's move on to our next conversation piece but we ended up with this. I lost my gorgeous grandma this past Friday. So hearing about mass murder breaks my heart more. It makes me think at least she's free from this beast of a system.
Yes.
Rest in power to the victims.
Yes.
And
so sorry.
Almighty is baby says Tila, my deepest condolences. And also all of us too.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's move on to another conversation topic. Leonard Leo.
Him and Mitch McConnell have been bosom buddies for a long time, right? In terms of these.
Give us the breakdown, Aisha. I know you read him. You're going to read him to filth.
Well, he's like I said, he's the head of the Conservative Federalist Society, and what's so important is that he was in Mitch McConnell's ear, giving us Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Amy Coney Barrett, and they really were trying to shape the Supreme Court in their image. They knew that if they had, that's yet another reason why they kind of conspired with McConnell to not give Obama his pick, right? And there is no law that says, a president can't make a Supreme Court pick if a seat comes open and it's this close to election. They made this up. They literally made it up to do this. And unfortunately for Obama, he had no control over.
How did he not? I've always had.
I don't get that.
Me
either. Because in 2010, remember, Republicans took control of the House and the Senate. So he had no momentum behind him to really fight with that, and that's the challenge. Now, for example, Joe Biden almost went the same route with Ketanji Brown Jackson, right? Because if Mitch McConnell had been Speaker
Yeah.
of the Senate,
Nobody would have
they would
voted.
never have brought her up. They would never have brought up that vote to do
Wow.
to fill the seat.
Really?
Yeah, they never would have, because and Mitch McConnell said this. When they were doing the whole right before the hearings, he was like, "Well, if I was Speaker, we wouldn't be having this vote." Well,
That's
guess
right.
what?
He did say that.
You're not.
He tells you straight out.
Yeah,
And he has no shame. And this is my home state. He is from my home state. How in the hell do people keep voting this man in here? I don't get it. The poorest people vote this idiot in there when he does not care.
Look, if they had a choice between what's the guy, Corey, and Mitch McConnell's dead corpse, they're gonna vote for Mitch McConnell's dead corpse, right?
Really?
And remember, here is where Democrats messed up and lost an opportunity. That lady that they ran against McConnell in the last
Sally
election,
or
Amy or whatever her name is,
right.
She just didn't have the stuff. Not to say that she didn't have the right viewpoints and platform. She wasn't a candidate that people could really rally behind. And she won that primary against, I forget Corey's last name, but she won the primary against him. And now we're trying to kind of even up the score by him getting back in the race. Clearly, he was the candidate. He was doing better. He was doing much better than she was. He was doing much better than she was in the primary. And then all of a sudden, there was this money that was flooded into her account, which makes me think that might have come from the right, because Mitch McConnell did not want someone who was competitive.
That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened. They picked the weaker one because they knew that Mitch would win. And this guy was so good, and he could handle dirt. Okay, he could handle dirt being thrown at him. This Amy chick, she couldn't do it. She just couldn't. She, like, if it got even a little bit dirty in the water, she said, "Oh, no!" Really? She couldn't handle it. She can't handle it.
Look, when you're dealing with people who live in the gutter, sometimes you have to get in there with them and fight it out.
But
that's what Democrats are not doing.
But Leo, what's his face, is a Catholic. So how are the Baptists and the Catholics intersecting?
Power.
Well, here's money. It's power and money, but it's also this. They have the same. Remember, it's the Catholics and the evangelicals, the white evangelicals. Yeah. They have the same principal beliefs, and this belief about abortion and wanting to get rid of abortion is what they unite on. Wanting to pack the Supreme Court is what they unite on.
And he's been packing. They've got $581 million from all the PACs that he represents, and they've been
and not only
in the courts throughout America.
Yeah, but not only the Supreme Court. He's very slick, because he also was feeding all those judges, those 300 federal judges that Trump appointed while he was in office. Those picks came directly from Leonard Leo and the Federalist Society. And you know who else works for the Federalist Society? We talked about this last week. Meghan McCain's husband.
Her husband, Dumbrook, or what's his last name? Dominic Dummy Head or something.
Like that,
Mm-hmm. But it's so funny because he is a Knight of Malta, and like that whole Opus Dei kind of, if you're like into like that whole Tom Hanks, what was that movie that the Opus Dei, and they were all like with all the the priests, and the Holy Grail type of stuff.
Da Vinci Code
stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like there is like this Opus Dei concept, I believe. And the Knights of Malta, that's like the Vatican. So, it's so wishy-washy to me. It's like, what the hell is going on? Because
they claim it's all core, but I'm sorry. Anything that they want to do is fine. You can guarantee that they still getting their abortions. They still getting everything they want to, but they're oppressing others because the core is power. It's power over someone else. It's not just abortions. It's not just we ain't going to feed the babies. It's not just feeding the courts, these judges.
I think
we
they're
want
eating
power.
babies.
Well,
I
let's be
think they're the
realistic
ones
here.
who have the adrenochrome because they talk so damn much about it, and they really, really desperately want everybody's babies. I'm like,
Yes.
yo,
You know-
this is getting a little creepville for me. Amy Coney Barrett made this comment
Oh Lord.
that because of the, let me get this right, it was in her footnote, and Alito lined up his footnote
Yes,
with her,
about the
where
having
he
enough.
cited, you know, he had been making a point that quantifying the supply demand mismatch of babies and it really discounts the whole emotional and financial costs of having a child, right? We all know that. However, he lined his up where he cited to Amy Barrett's points she made in an oral argument in Dobbs, where she said, there's no harm in carrying a baby the whole way to term because the safe harbor laws actually mean that all you have to do is just drop them off at a fire department, church, or a police department. And then but the crazy thing about their two footnotes actually are signaling that there's no hardship in forcing someone to have a baby. And there, Alito was kind of referencing like the 14th Amendment about, trying to correlate the 14th Amendment in there. But if you really look at the 14th Amendment, they're basically advocating for, the 14th Amendment is about a lot of freedoms, but they're advocating for the government to be in charge of a woman's body and telling her to make babies and breed for them if they want, if they
Now,
so
you know
want.
that ain't no.
And that's like chattel. And the 14th
thing.
Amendment moved, has a clause in there about chattel and about bodies and telling someone what to do with their body. It's very specific, and it's in there because it was written around. I mean, it's like it's ironic that Alito would have referenced the 14th Amendment, but twisting it. It was like, you didn't even read this? Because you're promoting that the government would start coming in and telling people what to do with their bodies. What if they told you needed a hysterectomy? We got rid of these kind of laws when they were doing eugenics and when they were doing those kind of things. So he is an original. They call these people originalists. Is that what it is, Aisha? He's an origin. He
Because
wants to go all the way back.
They take the Constitution literally.
Yes.
And there's a challenge, though, here. Remember why the 14th Amendment came to be, and that part about chattel is very important because the 13th Amendment is what made Black people citizens, right?
Right.
The 14th Amendment was necessary because basically it says, no, these people have a right to their own bodies. And they can't be this, because that is really the amendment that people don't look at in terms of how it impacted slavery, right?
Thank you.
So there's that, but there's also this thing. It goes back to our very first conversation when we were talking about this fear of becoming a racial minority. That's the reason why there is this push on the right to have Roe overturned, because they don't want more white babies to be aborted, right? They don't really care about women of color at all.
Right.
It's making sure that they have enough voters in the future to maintain control of what they have control over. And it also speaks to the fact that a lot of people, particularly men, but Amy Coney Barrett, I don't think that she birthed her kids, because
I was going to say that.
She would know pregnancy is not easy.
Thank you. She didn't have her babies.
Talking about, oh, well, it takes nothing to carry a baby to term.
Right.
Like, really?
It's like talking to Barbie about how to have a baby.
Fun.
These two are like talking to Barbie and Ken about how to make babies.
There was this clip about, you know how they have this reporter go out and he speaks to all these people, right? And they're all talking about adoption. They're all out there screaming and hollering, we want adoption. And so he goes, okay, well, how many babies have you adopted? I've had both of my children. And then he goes to the next lady. How many babies have you adopted?
Yep.
Oh, I have birthed my children. So what are you talking about? Adoption. You know nothing about adoption. You just want somebody else to do adoption.
They don't,
and they don't. Things you don't know.
And when you start using children as a commodity or products here in America, I mean, they are reluctant to let children go. A lot of people I know have gone to adopt, and they're reluctant. They put you through hell to do it because they get federal money. And once you start doing that, I mean, with jails and private adoptions, I mean, look, everybody wants to talk about how come Laura Ingraham got both of her kids from one from Russia and the other one from Guatemala. I mean, all these women, white women who say they want to adopt so badly. Why'd you leave the country to do it?
Well, here's the other part of it too, is that, what if it was a woman like me who was on bed rest most of their pregnancy? How are they supposed to work and afford things for this and live while they're carrying this child as a human infant?
Wait, how much does it cost to have a baby here now? Like
$125,000, right?
Like if you have it on the street, it's about $150,000.
And childcare ain't cheap either.
Yeah, but they want you, even just because we also risk. We have one of the highest death rates of women, particularly women of color, going in to have their babies here. But it's a fiasco. Personally, I think the Supreme Court has done themselves in. Ain't nobody taking them seriously. They're not transparent. They're a clown show, and they can do whatever they think they want to do, but they will not get away with this.
No, I don't think they are so
all upset because people rolled up to their homes. Get used to it, because we have just as much right to go and stand in front of your homes and protest as anybody else. You are not above it. Stop acting like you are above the law, because you are not above the law.
And here's the sad part, right? Really, because once this was leaked, the very first words out of Joe Biden's mouth should have been like, I'm expanding the court.
Bam.
Period. I'm expanding the court. Because as long as you've got people like Leonard Leo working with Mitch McConnell to not bring certain people to a vote and to bring other people that they want into the Supreme Court, I mean, it's always going to lean to the right. And the challenge, the real problem with that goes back to what Jill said earlier. We have a separation of church and state. Why are you putting these people on the Supreme Court? Because they have these religious beliefs that counter Roe. It doesn't make any kind of sense at that point. Like, for example, remember when Ketanji Brown Jackson was doing her confirmation hearings, Lindsey Graham asked her about her faith and her religion.
Yeah, that was rude, and they should have put that little Nelly in his little place.
He should have been sanctioned, or taken away his assignments or whatever, because he broke the law.
Yeah, he did. But they don't care about that.
T-Law is saying, did you see the women dressed in Handmaid's Tale costumes protesting outside Tony Barrett's home?
Yes.
Yeah. And Lala, I saw that news story. Now those folks had no real answer to the question the reporter asked.
And you know what, though? People are bringing this Margaret Atwood piece into it. But I don't think that people have been watching her Twitter thread.
I have.
She said some very offensive things that, about women of color. It's that tone deafness again of white feminism, the failure to acknowledge the intersectionality of it, and then turn around on Twitter. I mentioned this in our private DM, that they turn around and are then like, well, why are Black women doing this and doing? Look, you want us to carry you on our backs. We already tried to help you get the right to vote. Right. Said you were going to help us, and you stiffed us, right? And so then there's the other part of it. 98% of Black women voters voted for Democrats.
Yeah,
it's
totally.
53%.
It was them
that look like them.
That they don't like to look in the mirror.
Yeah, well, that's why they're trying to redraw all the districts now.
Yes.
They can't take it. Oh my God, we're going to play dirty again. Let's go behind closed doors and redraw these lines so that
that's why they come up with false equivalencies. Like after this shooting in Buffalo, immediately they're comparing it with the black guy who drove down the sidewalk somewhere. And it's just like, really, go sit down somewhere.
Yeah,
because
Charleston was right there.
Yeah, it's like
right?
The saddest part of all is that they also, we're going to have to talk about this one day, but there's another thing called femcells, guys, not incels, femcells. There's a whole new group. These young kids, damned if they don't love to have a title or a name or a label. Like, what caused this? Was this when they were little? You give them pins or something, or you're in the blue group or the red group. Now you've got femcells, and they are girls who say we're ugly. Boys don't like us. We don't like other kinds of feminists. Oh, it's deep. It's just deep. So the whole white area sector is all complicated right now. I don't even know if they can handle that.
We can't put out one fire because there's 1,000 infinity behind us. You're trying to put out one fire, but shit, they all behind you.
It's so true.
And let's be very clear that feminism was yet another rip off of things that Black people were doing. Black women were womanists. That's why Black women prefer the term.
Right.
And you have the I forgot. I'm gonna get the name wrong, but I think it's the Kobahami or something like that collective, where they came up with this list. Black women came up with this list of things that they wanted for women, and then you have people like Gloria Steinem come in and take their principles and write the feminine mystique, right?
Yeah, Bell Hooks wrote a lot about.
And then she's considered the mother of feminism. When you're talking about the mother of feminism, let's start with Harriet Tubman, okay?
Right. Well, it goes back to. I read an article today in the New York Times about homes in Glendale being $8,500 in the days of 1954, and Black people were not allowed to live in the neighborhood that I live in now. I live in like this area, and the interesting thing is that it was a sundown state, and it had the first Nazi chapter here. Mm-hmm. I was like, ooh. But what's so interesting is that at least our governor here is recognizing certain things, and that's why he's doing this whole reparations kind of thing, because it immediately put people of not having any kind of wealth, generational wealth, by not having houses. They weren't allowed to buy houses. So ultimately, what we're kind of looking at, so what we're looking at when you're talking about with feminism, it's kind of the same thing, where Black women had initiated this whole activism and had gotten it all together. And then white women particularly came in and decided that, they would do it too, and sort of transferred the whole movement to them. But as if, they were all being sent to college, number freaking one, to get husbands. That's all they were there for.
Yeah.
Nobody took them seriously, but they were still born on third base and moaning. Okay. Try being born before there were any plates,
right?
And being stuck there. They are born on third base and moan the most. But what's about to happen to them is their lackadaisical attitude and thinking they could play both sides against the middle got them caught up, and they about to just become baby breeders.
Yeah.
Well, the sad part,
and they're shocked. They wouldn't be appalled if it was against Black women. Most of them are just like, oh my God, I can't believe they did this to us. That's the only thing that got them off of their asses. Can you believe that?
Yeah.
Where were they before?
Remember, the origins of white women's feminism was that they didn't, you're talking about the women who, those white women who were in their movement. These were the women who were at home popping pills, drinking, and tired of that
going
life.
To the club,
right.
Where they play tennis and all that stuff. We didn't even have that stuff.
Yeah, folks, I'm gonna move it. Because we got a lot more to chat about tonight. We got a pile more to go on. So
we can do a whole show about that.
Yes. So just before I go any further, Christy White says, hello, everyone. Great conversation.
Hey, you.
Tila saying Harriet Sojourner, Shirley Chisholm, Alice Walker, just to name a few true womanists. And Sheila says,
Totally.
remember Sojourner said, quote,
Yep.
I a woman, unquote, to the
So yes,
feminist.
if you haven't read that speech, you need to go read it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's continue on. Another thing I just found out today, there is a baby formula shortage in America.
We only have 4 distributors, right?
Yeah,
That's
this is
it.
the thing. They have a monopoly on the production of baby formula. But to add to it, here's the real reason. When Trump renegotiated NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, baby formula was one of those things that was put in there that the United States cannot work with Canada or even Mexico to trade for formula. That was the one thing. And it's like, it makes you wonder, why did he pick that thing of all the things, right?
It is weird, right?
Right. And you're seeing the grocery store shelves, and it's very scary. It's very scary for parents because, not every woman can breastfeed or is able to produce milk or enough milk. And sometimes, my daughter had a milk protein allergy where her pediatrician was like, you have to stop nursing her. Like, she needs a special formula. There are all kinds of challenges to breastfeeding. And then you have, of course, your, again, tone deaf white woman, Bette Midler out here. Oh, breastfeed, it's free. You know what else is free, Bet? Shutting up.
Because
it's like, you also, what she's talking about, going back to wet nurses. Guess what? Shut up. Black women did that already during slavery. We don't want to go back to that. What are you talking about? But the fact that the Republican Party has taken this shortage to be xenophobic by, Biden's going to give baby formula to all the undocumented babies. Well, here's the thing. Someone made this point on the news yesterday. They said there are 37 million infants, newborn infants, alive in America today.
Right.
And there are only 33,000 migrants.
Right. They really go too far with this whole migrant
they really go too
thing.
far. But here's the other part of it. Remember,
and let me just be honest, many migrant women particularly nurse their children.
Yeah.
American women, white women,
with the baby formula while you're trying
to pump
to
and they nurse their babies. They are not like all up in the formula. Let's just be straight up. They're healthier than American women are on the go. They got to make it lucrative to get around and do their stuff. I nurse too.
But here's the common sense part, Jill, is that, the common sense part of this is that if a baby is getting formula, that means they're under a year old, right? Mm-hmm. Which means likely those babies are citizens in this country. Right. Why would we not want to feed our citizens?
Right. Period. Because Elise Stefanik, that weird witch that I told you all about, that, what did I call her? A freaking goblin, goblin that she is. She made some crazy comments, about that. And, like I said, people have to also remember that there were trying things that happened in America before, like the Depression and all of these things. I sometimes wonder if we look at black and white movies and film and newsreels and think that was so distant and obtuse. And the reality is, wars happen. Like when you look at Ukraine and you go, wow, this is in color. And I'm actually looking at red blood. And I'm really looking at red grass on the street and everything's in color. It really changes the scenario. And babies didn't have milk then either. Mothers, you just have to go through it. The fact that everybody in America just whinges at not having things, that what we had going for us was so spectacular before. We were really spoiled. Really spoiled. We throw away shit all the time. People are digging in garbage cans to get some of the food that we have because they don't even want Whole Foods to let us give away food that they throw out. to homeless people. So
They'll
I'm
put a
like,
lock
we're
on it
sitting here like going,
They
you're
try and
going
say
to talk
it's
about
the FDA thing.
like, get used to it, get real. It's not Biden's fault. It was Donald Trump. You all voted for him. And now you got to sit up and figure out how to make milk for your babies. Well, go get some wheat, go get a mill and grind that stuff up and make it. Figure it out. They had to recall some of it anyway because getting your from China. Anyway, they had to recall like I don't know how much of it. So that was one distribution. If people practice as much as they concern over the stuff they feed their kids anyway, get out of here. Get out.
You know
I didn't think that Beth said anything
unhealthy
really crazy.
formula was in the 50s, right? In the 50s, it was very unhealthy because they were using that evaporated milk and Karo syrup
which
and water
rots your
to make
teeth.
a baby formula in the 50s and 60s. Now they don't actually do that. They put vitamins and they pasteurize the milk and all of this. And it's so funny because it's like here you have the Republicans, go and make your own formula. You mean the same kind of formula that you were fed that resulted in you not having brain cells?
I don't know if I know what you're saying and I get it, but there's rice milk. Vegans don't give their babies formula like that. You know, it's like there are so many women. I think we focus so much on what's not being done. It actually might help if somebody did a TV show about what are you doing through this crisis? It's like that's what we didn't learn from COVID. Like, what are you doing to get through this? Hey, maybe it'll help me. We want to all the damn time. Your babies will get fed.
Yeah. And the sad part though is that the rice milk, there's a shortage on all the alternative milks, baby formulas, right? And I didn't feed my daughter cow's milk. She had the breast and then she was on rice milk.
I was a colicky baby, couldn't stand milk. And I still hate cow's milk. I never could do it.
No, and it's like
I don't think we're built for it. I just don't think that humans are supposed to be drinking it.
Well, humans shouldn't be drinking milk anyway because we are the only mammals that drink milk beyond.
Exactly. I don't get it, and I just don't do it. I mean, give your kids some water. There are many kids that had to go to bed hungry. Yeah. And I feel for people who have babies, but it's not the time to. Look, you had a baby during a pandemic. Get it together. You should have maybe just start being a little more proactive as a parent and storing up stuff. Call me cold as whatever.
But here's the other part of it, Jill. The sad part is that they're talking out of both sides of their neck, right? So the first thing is, there's a shortage of formula, blah, blah, blah. Let's blame this. But you want women to carry babies to term.
Thank you.
You can't have it both ways.
That's my point.
Right.
You cannot have it both ways.
Yes.
And don't call yourself pro-life. You are pro-birth. Period. Because you don't care about the baby before they're born, really their mother, and you don't care about what happens to them after they're born.
I had a really good friend post a wonderful post and on Facebook, and she was like, okay, look, I'm going to start putting up all these recipes for women to start making their formula at home. And what did Facebook do? Bam! Put this warning up. Warning!
Oh, right.
And you can't share this stuff because it's not healthy and it's not good for your baby. Says who?
Yeah.
Says who?
There was a whole thing in New York. There I was involved with a group of women, and we were kind of like the underground who we shared. Some women were like selling like raw milk and doing some really interesting things it was all through email and stuff. I mean, you have to develop these pockets and get off of, some people are going to have to be more proactive and get off of these platforms to actually communicate with each other about it. I mean, some people don't believe in pasteurization, of like our dairy and stuff, but I did quite fine living in Europe and Paris when I used to eat cheeses, and my daughter too. It's like, it's just a very different thing. And like I said, there's other ways to, you got to nurse. If you don't have that, it's not such a bad thing.
And
really
nursing is a practice too. I think here's the thing: what the men who are talking all this stuff don't understand. Nursing is a practice, right? Mm-hmm. It takes time for your milk to come in, which means you have to do the practice of nursing.
3 days. It takes 2 or 3 days.
Well, some
That's all it
women
takes.
don't build up the right supply though to feed a baby every 2 hours, so it does take time.
I often challenge that. I don't know. I think that a lot of women just don't like to do it. It makes them gag and they don't like it. I personally, it was painful. I got through it. It hurt like hell. Now, those women who nurse all the way up where the kid has teeth, I ain't into that. But, that's kind of wild. But I do think that there's got to be a group of women that are not online talking about it. It's got to be an underground of women.
Right.
Women can help other women.
Yeah.
And they have in the past. I mean, no one talks about it, but there are many groups
always
that help.
Yeah. And here's the part that really has people's panties in a bunch, is because Joe Biden is trying to change that part of NAFTA. That made the trade between U.S. and Canada on baby formula.
Can he do that though?
Yes, well, he can. Remember, because Trump renegotiated NAFTA.
I know.
For no reason. There was no reason to renegotiate it, right?
Because I think Trump laid booby traps. I think that's why, even with the gasoline and all these deals where he's telling the corporations, gouge the prices, go crazy. Because I believe that there's a feudal system going on, and people, we're already in it. The coup is still ongoing. All of this is the coup. This is the fabric of the coup. This is like stage 4. Yeah, this is the coup.
Because they start, of course, trying to overturn an election, but then they get into these little pockets of things that they want to stop. And to stop people from doing. That is one of the reasons why they're taking over these state and local governments, right? It's like, oh, yeah, you might not be able to be a U.S. senator, but you can be on the school board and stop this from being taught, or these books from being available to kids, or these masks from not being worn. And they're infiltrating all aspects of American politics.
Yes, they are.
All right.
And we're not catching, the Dems aren't catching up.
Almighty is baby says, I had a young woman behind me in the grocery line yesterday, and she was buying formula. The old racist white woman behind her says, well, you must be really important. Unbelievable.
Buying food to feed your baby is not like,
I would have growled at her. I would have gone. That actually surprises people. I did that through COVID when I had my mask and people would get too close. Like after a while, I tried being like, what don't you get about 6 feet? I did all that with people. What don't you understand? And then finally, I one day just was there and they were all up, and I would just turn around and went, and they just
okay, we're moving on. We're moving on. Next topic.
It worked.
All right. I bet it did. What do we need to know about Finland, Sweden, and NATO? So last week, Finland and Sweden said they want to become part of NATO. Good. Because they feel threatened by Russian aggression. Thoughts?
Well, Finland's been building their underground tunnels for years. They have a whole underground city that's going on because they've anticipated all of this stuff with Putin for a long time, and anybody would at this point. I was listening to something the other day that said even the World Bank, the World Bank often has, you can go on its site and there's things to download and you'll kind of can see what people are buying, like their inventories, what's happening, shares, what all this stuff. And it's one of the least downloaded things that's there for people of all countries to download. And only a third of nations download it and read what's happening. So when they talk about grain and all of that stuff, everybody kind of saw this coming with Putin, apparently. And now when they say, oh, we're going to have a grain shortage, oh my God, the wheat and whatever. Well, they only exported 6 to 7% out globally to specific, mainly the Middle East and all that kind of stuff. So all these things, the media does stir it all up, but Finland's been trying for a while to get rid of that neutrality deal came from what, World War II or was it World War I? And that was only because they sided Well, they've always had problems with Russia. Let's be honest. That was the only reason they like worked with the Third Reich and the Germans, because they were trying to get Russia off their asses back then. So there's always, they want to come in, and I don't blame them.
Yeah,
because
and here's
he's
the other part
hovering around there.
Well, here's the other part that really bothers Russia about it, right? Because Russia's making these threats, like if you join NATO, it's over. Over what? You can't even win in Ukraine. Here's the thing: Finland shares an 80-mile border with Russia.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that in order for Russia to get into some of these countries like Belarus and even to Ukraine, if there is a blockade on the direct border, they would otherwise go through Finland. And if you look at how the map is, it is very much a Hitler kind of planning process that he's going through, right? Which was how Hitler was able to take over Europe and go into Russia. Well, the opposite is true here, is that, that having these two very neutral countries now want to join the alliance means that Russia will be on all of its land sides covered by NATO countries. So the invasion is going to be much more difficult. That just tells you where he's trying to go with it. He's trying to take over more land and more countries to make them part of Russia. He wants the old USSR back, and he'll take any land.
Talking about how the Bering Strait is just between Russia and us either. They're looking at the world map wrong. They're looking at all the way that it's been taught us. His ultimate goal is, all right, I'm gonna get this here and here and here, but let me get on over to this Bering Strait real quick.
That's so true.
And that is right behind his thinking. And if anybody does not see that, they are blind.
And I think
in his mind from the very get-go.
Well, it's so interesting because he turned off the electricity to them like last night, or I guess, which would have been their Friday or Saturday. I don't know. It was yesterday. He turned off their electricity, and he's definitely he knows that that's the strategy that they've all kind of come up with. But somebody made an interesting point the other day about his mindset. Quickly, that if he is terminally ill, all this is about he goes out with a high note where they think he really was trying, and he's setting up his funeral, his statue, and that's what this is about. Unfortunately, we don't know if that's really true because they want us to think that he's sick. I don't even know anymore if he is or he isn't. So. But Finland does need to come in from the cold because they need to still, there's evidence. I guess it took them a while to make the decision, but from the evidence, what we can see, this is the best solution. When you put in what Lala said, like Laura just said with the Bering Strait, and what Aisha has just said, you put it all on the table, and you don't even need an intuition to see how this was going to play out and why he's going to act like such a little fool when he gets, his tail in. Because now he's trying to scramble and figure this out because they just did something that kind of put a monkey in the stew, a wrench in it. I hate to throw animals in these things anymore because I like animals more than people.
But Joe, what you said is so true. And then what Lala said is that people in this country do not know what the world map looks like, right?
No.
This is why you have all of these people on the right who are like supporting Putin, because they don't understand where countries are situated in relation to Russia. A lot of them don't even realize how close Russia is to the continental U.S. Yeah. So it's like,
I did tell some people that, okay, Russia's right next door to Santa Claus. Damn it. And I think I ruined it for a lot of people.
But
they're near the North Pole.
Remember, Sarah Palin can see Russia from her house. Yes. And so the and this is the sad part about all of this banning of books and banning of history.
It's so scary, guys.
Classrooms
it's
is
scary
because people don't know these things, so they don't realize that what's happening over there affects us, because it affects our trade, it affects our foreign policy, it affects our remember, we have all of these military personnel stationed in various places. Right. We have embassies in all of these places. So this is a personal home problem as much as it is a Russian Ukrainian issue.
Was it in Finland where they threw tomatoes at the ambassador? Was it Finland?
I think so.
Boy, they should have known right then and there that was going to that something was not flying right, because I remembered one country just bombarded him with tomatoes. And then he came back and said, well, I support my president or Putin or whatever. But he looked like hell by the time he left. And he was walking through like a group of people, and they were like,
walking shame.
Yeah. I was like, dude, whoa.
Yeah. I want to ask something because of my ignorance. And it's just because I guess I just never learned everything I needed to know about NATO, because I have had several meltdowns on why do you even need to be a part if the whole NATO thing is supposed to be protecting those who need protection? Why do you have to be a part of NATO for them to even care or take action? That's what's bothering me. We're sitting back and looking at these horrors of rape and murder and pillaging and all this stuff. Disgusting. But all we're doing is going, that's just a shame. Why are we sitting back and just saying that's a shame? Because I don't understand, and I need someone to explain it to me.
Because NATO is really a response to our involvement in world wars, and the really with kind of like America being I want to say an isolationist country, because it's like we don't want to get involved in other people's stuff, but we want to get involved in other people's stuff.
Yeah.
And so the alliance itself has the rule that, okay, if a NATO member country is being attacked, all the other NATO countries will come to their defense. Finland and Sweden are out here without protection right now. Mm-hmm. And Russia is making all kinds of threats. With Russia to their border, and Russia, remember, they came across the border into Ukraine. They can easily come across the border into Finland. And Finland doesn't have the kind of military that can defend an invasion from Russia. So this is why they're eager to join NATO. This is why we have countries who join NATO, because they don't have the military presence to really fight something like an invasion from Putin on their own. And so one of the reasons for us it's good is because we, for example, in Afghanistan and Iraq, when George Bush went into those countries, we didn't talk about it a lot because we were like, oh, American military. But our NATO partners joined us to help fortify our military. So we didn't have to send as many people as we would have ordinarily. And so that is the benefit of it. Sweden and Finland have been those two for more than 100 years, those two countries that are like, we're going to be neutral. We're not going to get involved. But now it's right at their doorstep. So now
but at what point do we put humanity first instead of country when we see people being just completely decimated? That's my confusion. I understand that, but I guess the human person to me, or maybe it's my little Pisces born in the oh my God, everybody.
Oh, Pisces have a hard time with it.
I'm having a very difficult.
But you know the thing about NATO that there's a caveat to NATO, because when you look at the member countries, South America is not represented as they should be. Africa is not represented as it should be. The Caribbean is not represented as it should be. So you have a lot of the countries that have, remember, Europe and Australia and the United States, well, not United States, of North America, the upper half of North America, are the only places in this country really where you have European descendants. The rest of the world is Black, brown, Asian, people of color, right? Mm-hmm. So those countries don't have the same kind of power in joining NATO, and that's the exclusionary aspect of it. That I think is sad. But the fact that you have Finland and Sweden now talking about, look, we can't be neutral anymore, tells you how bad of a problem it is over there.
But I just want to say that you also have to remember that a lot of the things that Putin pulled were, threats about nuclear, I'm going to blow up the world and everything. And people really need to give Joe Biden a lot of credit for the way he dealt with him, because I had been like saying, we need to go in there and do that. But actually, that would have been a devastating thing to deal with, because what you have to assess, it's all like, then you call people who are like mathematicians and people advance probability theorists in these situations, where who are very autonomous, who are mathematical and not emotional, and they're looking at what is the precipice that this dude could trip out on. They have to determine and assess, where is this man's mind? What is he going to do it? Would he do it? Now, we had Donald Trump did the same thing with Kim Jong-un, right? Yeah. He threatened to send a bomb to him, a nuclear missile.
Right.
So the interesting thing is that these mathematicians and these people have to determine and get as much intelligence as they can, if it's true, about why Putin has gone down this road. And the best way to deal with that is to not react to his threats. Mm-hmm. And for that, Joe Biden did a damn good job. Mm-hmm. He almost deflected. And the other beautifully weird thing that's happening, if you look, we're actually giving Putin outs to end it. How everybody has come together. They haven't humiliated him that much. The media does in its own way.
Right.
But they're giving him outs. He's already created this thing where he's going to go and have surgery. He's going to have a recovery time. These are outs. The way and it's being done in a pretty phenomenal way. So it's kind of interesting that they did the Finland thing. May have not been the best timing, but I do believe that NATO and they all know what they're doing about why they decided to break this news now. But the reality is they are introducing ways for him to get out. That's a very Sun Tzu warrior thing. There's a saying in Sun Tzu warrior about making your enemy comfortable in their defeat. So they don't fucking lose it, because he's so vested and his ego, you've got to be able to quelch that. That's my 2 cents.
Well, it makes more sense to me now. Because, I know there's a lot of us out here, because like I said, we got millions of fires behind us. You can't know everything about everything. And my first reaction was, why are we just not doing anything? I just don't get it.
Yeah. And we also should mention that NATO also opens up countries to funding from outside sources in a way that that is beneficial. So if they don't have weapons and things like that, what we're doing, we're right now is we're treating Ukraine kind of like a NATO partner with all the things. But we should note that this last $40 million did not get passed because Rand Paul sat up there and was like, I'm not doing it.
Rand Paul is another one. Isn't he from Kentucky too?
Yes, Lord Jesus.
We got to clean out Kentucky. Let's just be honest. That little cabal of traitors needs to be cleaned out. Like, done. And I don't know who's going to do it, but somebody needs to make a move and get rid of those two.
And what happened in this country, how, like, in the 50s and 60s, people who supported Russia were treated, looked down on. But now that the Republicans are doing it, it's like, oh, it's a thing to do. Really?
All right. Brian Delaney says, I developed crippling anxiety over World War III scenarios when I was a young kid. I feel guilty about personal worry when I see that what folks in the actual conflict are going through. And he also says, I agree with Jill, was very impressed with Biden that he did not ratchet up and the wave of the American flag for cheap votes.
Yeah, and the thing is that we've seen that done before. So it's like we just saw it in 2001, 2002, because think about it, there was no need for us to go into Iraq.
Right.
We were supposed to go into Afghanistan, get in, get out. The Iraq part of it was a personal vendetta by the former U.S. president.
But now we can see that China is not going to come in and rush to save. Right. And we also know that they've stepped out of it. So, and even your, Saudis.
And let's understand why China stepped out of it. China is one of our biggest, we trade with them. They're one of our, we're one of their biggest consumers. And so if they stepped in that mess, they would lose a lot of money. And you're talking about a country that has 1 billion people in it.
Yeah.
So it's, I see why China's kind of like, you know what, leave our name out of this, because
what is it? Rare. I'm not in it. My name's Ben, and I'm not Bennett.
Yeah. It's like China is like, we want no parts of this.
Oh my goodness. That's
remember,
hilarious.
At first, Putin was kind of like, oh, he's going to make this alliance with China. China's like, hold on a minute. Wait a second.
We need one of those whatever the president of China is, and him like, oh, my name's Bennett. I ain't in it.
All right, let's move on to our next conversation topic. Shireen Abu Aklala, UN condemns the killing of this Al Jazeera reporter. Thoughts?
Well, it was very deliberate.
Yes.
They meant to kill a reporter. And now here's the thing. What is so sad, in the last week, 3 media people were killed over in covering Ukraine. And that they were wearing their vests. They have the blue vest, the bright blue vest that say press across it. They were uniquely targeted, okay? Because remember, Russia is a propaganda state. And they're going to spin this to say, oh, well, we had to because the press is picking up arms. No, that's the ballerinas that are picking up arms and fighting with Ukraine. But they are just, it's so unjustified that you can't really understand why people are not going to want to cover these things anymore. I mean, you can't understand why people are not going to want to cover these things anymore, because it's a risk. You should be able to go in and report freely what is going on without the threat of violence being enacted towards you. But Putin is trying to take down the media in Ukraine because the media is reporting that he's not doing so hot.
Anyone want to add on that?
I don't think this is going to be the end. I'm afraid for our reporters all around the world who are in complete harm's way. They are now targets. Especially during this, and I don't see that this one is going to be the last. And that just breaks my heart.
And the sad part too is how the reaction to this woman's funeral, right? They're bringing her casket in, and you have this militarized police force throwing things at people and fighting people, and it's just it's really sad. It's really sad because she didn't deserve this, and those people who were mourning her didn't deserve it either.
Yeah, I think that, we've seen a few interesting things with Israel, and I'm still on the fence about what they're doing. I don't know if they created this to get us off of what the hell is going on between Putin and their president, Herzog or Isaac. Putin made a comment about Hitler a week ago with his crazy ass General Lavrov. And Putin apologized for the comments, and they had a conversation. And, you know, I just think that there's something going on. And then this happened, and it's been relentless, and it's been incredibly vile to watch. And it's unforgivable. I think the world is starting to see what Israel really is. The blinders are off. And if they think that they're going to get sympathy from most Americans, those days are over. We are not our grandparents, and we're not our mothers, we're not our fathers. We are not happy with the way Israel treats their folks. They got some grass and doo-doo in their backyard too. And we're not happy with it. And to see them blatantly hitting these people, we've seen it all before. And nobody likes to have somebody tell you what you're looking at, okay? And I've had arguments with people online about this who are upset with me, and they want to come for me, like, you know, and just because someone criticizes you doesn't mean that they're anti-Semitic. That's not it either. Right. The reality is these officers are doing some crazy stuff. It's just like watching the assassinations that we have with police officers killing Black and brown people here in this country. It is the same in Israel. And that is it. And anybody who defends that bullshit should leave, because we got a lot of people who can go and live in Israel. Yeah. Just because of the way they were born. Go, leave. Because
and that's a very Americanized way of looking at this too, right? Because in Americans are like, oh my gosh, if you criticize this country, you're not patriotic.
Oh my God, no! Like, I mean, they have some submarines.
That is the democracy.
Like, I think Germany,
that's what democracy is.
Germany gave them a submarine, 2 submarines, like a couple years back that were like $12 billion. I don't even know how much they were. It's like. Then they got caught in a scam with Netanyahu, had this scam where he had like Holocaust survivors, you know, because they still get money for that. He had Holocaust survivors who were damn near 150 years old. They weren't alive, by the way, collecting money. So that scam, I mean, there were just some shady things going on. And you know, I'm not trying to say it, but give people an inch and they'll take a mile. And that concludes their country. They need to zip it up and get it together. It's not right. We're all trying to live on this planet together. Yeah. Why do we have these old men? They are terrorizing us. They have been terrorized. These old white men are terrorizing us.
Yeah. And remember,
and then you got the crazy Saudis who are running out of oil, trying to keep afloat a couple of islands that, you know, climate change is going to devour. And then what? They're all riding on donkeys? I don't know.
But, you know, I mean, the thing, too, is that the Palestinians didn't just get to Israel. They have been there,
right? Going
back to the Bible era, right?
Exactly. This is like a bunch of children.
They've been there. And they've been fighting this battle that long, a couple of centuries, right? So it's like, it makes no sense.
This is the point. Religion. It ruins everything. Religion ruins everything.
Jewish people in Israel grew after World War II. So it's kind of like, okay, how do you take people who just come in here and, you know, make them, well, guess what? America did the same thing.
Yes, because white people have no conscience, because these old white people were given these passed down the breath of hatred into their babies' mouths as soon as they were born. It was like an exchange of just green and pukey energy. And it's in their children, and it continues and it continues and it continues.
Still today, it's taught today, in our homes.
Which is why I'm all about ignoring racists and not inviting them to parties. I keep saying this, and if their kids go to school with your kids, don't invite them on birthday parties. Isolate, boom, stay away, because this is crazy. You know, I saw something the other day online. A little kid showed up at this Black woman's house with a whip to beat the daughter. They were like 8 years old. Little white boy came with a whip and he was banging on her door. And this mother came to the door and said, "Don't you be banging on my door. Go home." So then the father, you know, of the Black child, the girl, he went over to have a reasonable conversation with the parents of the white boy. And what do you think happened? They shot at him.
Yep, and then he accidentally shot at him. Well, first of all, what you doing out with a gun in the first place?
You don't accidentally shoot people.
Ain't no accident.
Thank you.
You don't accidentally shoot people when you pull out
No.
the gun and aim it at somebody. That's not accidental.
And these are your neighbors. It's like nobody wants to throw your neighbors into jail. It just creates more animosity. You live in these places. You know how difficult it is, to move out, and then, but there they are. He was like, I don't like the way you came over here and talking about my son did something.
I don't like the way your son showed up with a whip on my door.
I mean, this little kid showed up with a whip.
And was whipping it. Not just walking with it. He was whipping it.
Yeah. Unreal.
Let's get
that
to our
would have
last
been the last whip that kid had ever seen if he'd have showed up and rolled up on me.
All right. Last story. Why COVID is a key suspect in severe hepatitis cases in kids worldwide.
Well, let's define hepatitis first of all. It really is your liver is kind of going into liver failure. That's what it is. There's different types of hepatitis, but the viral hepatitis is really bad. I had it in 2011. I got it while I was traveling, and almost went into kidney failure to the point they were looking for a donor kidney. So imagine that's me as an adult. I mean, liver failure. I'm sorry, donor liver. That's me as an adult. But think about children and their bodies and their systems aren't as strong as adult ones. And so if a child needs a liver is a vital organ. Absolutely. So hepatitis attacks the liver. And, COVID is a virus. And why is it a key suspect? Well, because remember, children are not getting vaccinated, particularly children under 5. And so we're also sending them to schools, that a lot of schools that don't have updated and upgraded HVAC systems. So the air quality in the schools are poor. And now you have these schools in all these states where they're like, oh, take off the mask. So people are taking off the mask. Kids are catching COVID. And honestly, I think that kids have COVID at a rate probably comparable to adults, but it's not being reported. Right. Because they're not studying it in children the way they are studying it in adults. And so for this, a child has has a compromised liver. That child has less of a survival rate than an adult.
It's for children under the age of 10. They have 109 cases here. Right. And in Scotland, they had, I think, 5 or 10. 10. And so the WHO, World Health Organization, they've just been trying to figure out what it is. And they think it has something to do with the detection of the adenovirus differs with the children. And so here we are. They don't know. They know that they think it might have been associated with the version of the gastroenteritis, that version that kids seem to be showing problems with. And, I think that for the next 10 years, we're not really going to know everything that COVID has done to everybody. I think they're going to be studying it for a while, and all these cavalier outtakes and people, let's just say that wasn't yesterday, like our day, like 1 million people we reached in America. It was like, yep, we have to have some kind of sobriety and respect and still honor those people. But it's so disrespectful to see people who still don't believe that it was anything.
No.
And
we'll tell you that we're crazy.
Yeah. And they are ramping it up, and there's great concern for the winter because now we don't know what that's going to do.
But think about this too: kids going to school, they have PE class and all that stuff. The water fountains alone are vessels of bacteria and everything, and that's one of the ways that COVID is spreading to kids, right? So it makes sense that kids
well, it was in the water. It was showing up in the water out here.
Yeah, it's showing up in the water. But when kids drink the water fountain, who've been exposed, kids don't necessarily know how to just put their lips to the stream. They tend to want to put it on the water fountain.
Well, I never could do that.
And kids, I always call them little petri dishes, right?
Yeah.
They carry everything and they pick up everything. So it makes sense that kids would have a COVID rate that is comparable to adults, because think about it. parents, if you're a parent, you know those first 2-3 years of life, everything your kid gets, you get it. And so to not think that kids don't have that rate of COVID or the result.
But they've had kids who've died from this. They have died.
Yeah.
And,
because hepatitis is deadly.
But they're saying they don't know if it's A, B, C, D, or E. They know it's an acute viral hepatitis that causes this inflammation inside the liver and elsewhere. And I'm telling you, when, we are really going to see a real, we have the worst healthcare in the world. So we can only imagine what that's going to do. And for everybody who said, I'll just tough my way through it, I do believe also a report came out the other day that people have shortened raised the potential for themselves to have dementia.
Yes.
So that was a really sad thing to actually see that can come down the pipeline. We're just in a really weird time in history, very bad time.
And the early signs of hepatitis mimic other kinds of illnesses. So parents seeing these things in their kids, one of the first things that happens to you is that you are so overly tired. It's like you will sleep. I slept for 2 days straight before my mother's like, something's wrong with you, right? Because you don't sleep this much. And then, other thing, it changes your urine, which also could look like a UTI. So it mimics other things before they get to it. So I'm sure a lot more children probably were struggling with it than we know of, but their parents thought it was something else.
I'm with you, Jill. We're not going to see any of these real numbers and real stuff that's going on until 10, 20 years later, when we're going to be looking back on it saying how stupid we were. I mean, let's just face it. Even now, with all people not wearing their masks and stuff, what's back on the rise? The flu, the cold, everybody. COVID.
Well, a friend of mine actually told me that he lost a very good friend of his 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And it's so we've forgotten. There are people who still die. The guy, it did such damage to the guy's lungs. He was trying to they were trying to get him a transplant. He was on a list, and that was kind of like, he wasn't going to get anything. It's just too many people. And he was only 55 or something, young.
Yeah. I had a friend that passed away from COVID who was a healthcare worker.
But within the last week, people are unaware or seem to be like, the media just goes on about
it.
Right. But people are still dying.
Yeah, people are still dying. And the sad part about it is that when you look at the proportion of people who died prior to January 2021, the majority of these casualties came under Donald Trump, who refused to do anything. Remember, one of the reasons that we're not going to know a whole lot is because, first of all, he probably ate some of the papers or flushed them.
True.
But remember, he wanted to stop testing because it made him look bad. So if he wanted to stop testing, that also means that he put the kibosh on any kind of research and understanding of it as well. This is the same guy who's putting out propaganda saying people should drink bleach.
That's the same guy and we have to understand, it's okay to keep dealing with this misinformation thing. Is it okay anymore? Or are we really letting states get away with this? We've got stupid Abbott, who basically is allowing, what state is it that's now going to will not allow nurses or a pharmacist to tell anyone that ivermectin doesn't really do anything for you. So what we're doing is we're getting a lot of suppression of actual truth. And, this whole concept of experts, a lot of people overrate their expert ability. That's another thing we need to talk about. But the saddest part of all is that they are, we are allowing misinformation as if that's just normal and we have to learn to deal with it. No, we don't. If the FCC did what it was supposed to do and regulated, I'm sorry. What the hell? I feel like they should all just go home and
Yeah.
not work there anymore because they're not doing anything. They're absolutely useless. Useless. And they shouldn't give a check because you made a comment about who got $90 million and should have been given. Oh, that was Black Lives Matter. Could have given it to everybody in the country, some money to help them with what's going on. We have been suffering in this country and we're going to continue only because we have people who are supposed to be working, like Merrick Garland, who, wait, did you see him behind Joe Biden the other day when Joe was giving a speech? What carpet did they unroll and he crawled out of? Looking like he didn't know how he got there, where he was.
Okay.
And he didn't say shit.
Okay.
I'm so sick
He
of
is
that
so
man.
pissed about not being on SCOTUS right now. He is so. It's like it shows in his work. It's like, you know, when people
I
are
don't
like
know.
on
He
their
would have
way
been a
out of a
quick change
job
artist.
and they're just like, I don't really care.
Girl,
about
he
you.
would have been a quick change artist too. It does not move mountains in my opinion.
Oh,
The earth don't move with that one.
okay. All right.
But
We're
one last thing though about this particular topic. The sad part about the whole COVID thing and why we're not going to have a lot of good information and important information is that you have people who are medical doctors like Rand Paul and Ronnie Jackson saying that COVID isn't real.
Yeah.
Or that, you know, only certain people can get COVID. And then we have to remember when COVID first came out, what was the media saying? Well, the majority of people who are getting COVID are Black and brown.
Yes.
And so, of course, they were not thinking that,
but we could fight it. Remember, they kept saying Black and brown people are healing perfectly. Everybody just said, oh, it doesn't get us.
Right.
Here's one before we go. I just want to say one thing to just sum up. You asked what the week was like. This is it. If people were more in our country concerned about the things that actually mattered, but you know, Texas, because I think Texas is such a you know what they banned?
Well, they're about to look. Their power
filters.
is about to go down again.
They banned filters on it from Instagram. They banned filters because they said it interfered with facial recognition. Now, y'all need to why y'all trying to get facial recognition on people's sites? Number one. Number two, they banned it. You can't access them. People are sending their pictures out to their friends to get it sent back with a filter on it. But it will not, it does not come up in the search if you have Instagram in Texas. They banned. So everybody's just going to have to look extra cute down in Texas because we know that ain't the case.
Well, the sad part is that facial recognition is notoriously bad when it comes to interpreting the facial features of people of color, and people are easily what is it? There's a lot of discrepancies.
Profiling, that's wrong. Yeah, they're
exactly.
doing some things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna end it off there. But one quick question someone has and a one word answer. Tila says, I have a hypothetical question, y'all. If you could live in any other country in the world, where do you think you would land?
Portugal.
Who's next?
Yeah, I love Portugal.
Aisha?
Yeah, I'm thinking probably Canada.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll take you. All right. Kyle in the CV, where y'all from? We've been shaming COVID deniers for a long while. Well, you haven't been watching us then because they've been going at it for a long time with COVID shamers.
Shame is a good thing.
All right.
People need to feel more of it sometimes.
Almighty is baby. Great conversation, everyone. So we have called it a day. We got through it.
We did. And then there's another one coming.
Oh.
As we speak, we'll get to hear about whatever happened with that Ed Sheeran lookalike killer. And I hate to say he looked like Ed Sheeran. It really broke my heart, that he, I like Ed Sheeran, but he did. It's like this ginger shot up everybody in Buffalo.
All right.
Sick
before we let everyone go, as always, we want to say thank you to Lala. Hope you can come back.
Yes, please. We enjoyed it.
I loved it.
If you have time, we'd love you to come back.
Yes, we would love that.
We'd love
And Tila saying, great show, y'all. Thanks as always. Brian saying, thank you. Oh, thank you, Brian. You're a new member of the family. Please do not be a stranger. So before we let y'all go, gotta get contact information. Where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Realty Goddess. That's where I'm branded all over the place. If you get me there, you're going to get me everywhere.
All right, good stuff. Jill Jones.
Jill D. Jones at Twitter.
All right. Aisha Staggers.
Aisha Staggers at Twitter.
All right. And myself, all the crazy places you can get a hold of me are right there. I'd like to say thank you for everyone who watched the conversation live or on the replay or listen to it on the replay. Appreciate it, and we don't take it for granted. Want to thank everyone who caught us live tonight. We had a lot of fun tonight. And our audio video editor, she got a lot of work to do. But she enjoys it. If you want to catch replays of these epic conversations, let me just pull it up here. I'm trying to find where you can get it. I usually have it already here. There we go. You can catch replays of State of Things with Aisha and Jill on the Dr. Vibe Show YouTube and Facebook page, or on my website, the drvibeshow.com. As always, I close off with this. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourself grace. And I also want to add something new. I forgot two things. Well, one I said on the regular, and something new I have now. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy. And finally, quality time comes out of quantity time. So next week, I think we're doing a repeat next week because Aisha cannot make it, but follow us, and you'll find out. But there'll be something on. May not be live, but we'll be on. If it's a repeat, you know it's going to be good. God bless. Peace to all. Keep the faith and walk good.